kind of do like for the mid-cycle where whoever has topics, we just have a list of topics and work our way through it. Okay, so I guess we'll go on to the backup discussion. Who is, so, Tom, are you, were you going to lead the backup discussion? Well, yeah, sorry, confusing. We were going to wait in case there was anyone planning to actually come at that scheduled time, but we might as well just plow ahead, I guess.
Are you still plugged in?
HDMI or? Yeah, I just got switched to TV over.
Just used to the projectors.
Everybody that's
Yeah. Oh, upside down maybe?
I broke my.
Oh.
like, yeah.
Oh, web up. Did you get contacted about WA? My memory is. Yeah, I don't remember it.
So,
I don't know.
so if I take the link straight from what you sent me and try to shorten it, it doesn't work. But if I go into YouTube and take that long ass link, then it works. Even with all the garbage, then it'll do the trick. Yeah. Not sure.
Oh, wait, did I make sure?
Oh, cool. Okay, so I don't look like this Lisa Lee, to my knowledge. I've never met her in person, but I did. I'm Tom Barron. I worked on a blueprint for what we called scalable backup back in
Okay.
Liberty, and I did some prototype code for it at that point. Due to a variety of factors, I didn't work on it at all. And Mitaka, except to do with these reviews. But fortunately, Lisa, who unfortunately can't be here today, picked this up and went, great guns on the project. And McCall also did a whole bunch on it. In particular, versioned object compatibility, RPC API compatibility, upgrade order, and so on. So I thought what we ought to do is just, she prepared this Etherpad, and I wanted to respect, I'm basically a conduit and a facilitator. We joked at one point that we were working 24 hours, I'm about 12 hours off from where she is, but we talked about what was going on, and I tried to help shepherd this along a little. So I thought we should just review what has happened, what was done in Mitaka, and then think about what should come next. And to tip my hand on that, my opinion kind of comes back to what we were just talking about, which is we need to get some testing in place and for a lot of this stuff. You know, is maybe one of the next steps. But there are some interesting, more speculative futures that might be fun to talk about as well, that we can get in there. And, you know, who knows, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we should go faster than I think. So in Mitaka, Lisa merged some changes which decouple the backup and volume services. And the fact that they were coupled in the first place is really kind of technical debt, which you know, I've heard Duncan explain best, but basically when the backup service, correct anything I'm saying wrong here, Duncan, but basically when the backup service first went in order to meet some deadlines, it was set up so that the backup service had to run on the same node as the volume service, because basically the backup, let's see if I can say this right, the backup manager would import the volume modules, and it would actually invoke in the same process, so you can't get much more tightly coupled than that, the backup create method, say, in the driver, in the backup driver for the relevant volume, for the volume you're going to back up. So, I mean, the basic issue here is that in order to back up a volume, you got to know about that volume. You got to know what kind of volume it is. And so you've got the volume in your left hand and you want to shove it out on your right hand. You've got to attach to it, and you've got to use a driver-specific method to get that done. So for reasons of expediency, it was done at that point just by running the driver method to do a local attach. And then the driver would call the Swift backup Swift backup service, or the Ceph backup service, or eventually the NFS backup service, or whatever, to actually do the data copy. So that was never the intended design. It kind of violates everything you hear about OpenStack, use the message bus, be able to run in a loosely coupled manner and scale out horizontally. It meant we couldn't scale, hence we called this move back to really the original conception, scalable backup service. The other background factor on that was that that's sort of the technical debt aspect of it, and wanting to get the architecture to match, to be right for OpenStack. The other aspect of it being scalable was the idea that we could increase the amount of concurrency in the overall backup system. So each backup, we're not going to, this would not make any single backup or restore operation run more quickly. But previous efforts to develop more concurrency within a single host process, single Linux process, through multi-threading had not proved fruitful. I'm not saying they cannot. You'll see at the end of the agenda that that's an interesting area to further investigate. So getting more parallelism within a single backup operation, or even in the same process for multiple backup operations, was not panning out. So what this does is scale out over multiple processes. In this case, we're scaling, where the change is to run on separate nodes, and that's the first thought, but to scale multiple processes out over horizontally over multiple nodes. Some people have wanted to run multiple processes when the same node, et cetera. All those conversations could happen. This decouples it, makes it so that one could run multiple processes to do more aggregate work. And if you think about the use cases for backup, often people want to run a whole bunch of backups, you know, on a weekend late at night or whatever, or especially in the case of restores, they want to run a whole lot of restores at the same time because something happened. and you know, so the ability to scale that kind of thing out was desired. So in Mitaka, backing up now, pardon me for the context setting, but in Mitaka, we made changes in the API part of the backup service so that instead of, say you have create volume method. So instead of, you get the volume object that you're going to back up. And what used to happen was we'd say, okay, well, let's send an RPC to the same host as the volume. So now what happens instead, and Nicole can talk about compatibility and so on, but is that we get a list of the available backup services. So if you're running multiples of them, they're going to show as running services. And currently, just do a random shuffle among those and send it to one of those. So that may not be on the same node. So note there's no scheduler involved at this point at all. There's just a list of the available services. There is, by the way, a configuration option to run that you can set, and that just runs to send it to the volume host the way we used to. There is a version check. We get the capped highest version of the available clients, right? And basically we check whether we can do this or not.
Exactly. Because actually in this design, the API is doing the scheduling of the backup load. So when the cinder API detects that it's running with the other services, it makes sure that the backup call will get to the backup service on the node where the volume is located. Now, when cinder API detects that there are no older cinder backups, then it routes the request to any of them. I think it's at random.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah. Right now it's random. We were thought about round robining them. We thought about different possibilities. We just figured at the moment, random choice unless there's some other reason. So then the RPC is going to go to backup manager on one of these services. And the backup manager, instead of running a driver directly anymore, is going to use Brick library to get connection info and do a remote attach, basically, through a volume RPC API to the right volume. So it's attaching, the backup service is attaching just the way a compute instance would, basically. Then it just runs the backup services, you know, Swift or whatever as it used to. Now so that's in place, and it works in the sense that a bunch of developers have tried it out and didn't find anything wrong, and it got merged in Mitaka. So I'm just describing it the way, I mean, I like this. I was a champion of it, but I think we should look at the issue of, you know, I don't know who's using it or not. Even if, so you're going to get this service with Mitaka, you're going to get the scalable code in Mitaka, even if you have no plans to run multiple nodes with it. As long as you're running all Mitaka code, you're going to, you know, the version code, and you haven't gone out of your way to set this configuration option, right?
I think this is actually a pretty good model for what we could do with copy bind to image in the worst case scenario where we're DDing it. We've always kind of talked about.
Okay, can we put that, I like that idea, as you know, but I think, can we put that a little bit more towards the end of the conversation in terms of futures? No, it's okay, because I mean, what I'm doing is actually, I'm pushing a more conservative approach to the conversation at the moment. I would like to think about things that could be done along this model.
Yeah.
But I guess what I'm wondering is, do we know it works? What should we be doing? What should we be doing in Newton next? I mean, given the good work, I think it was very good work that was done. I think that's to some extent right, although we could look at testing along the way. In other words, this is a good case study for the kind of testing that McCall and you guys were just talking about, in my opinion, because it's relatively simple service. The changes are relatively simple, but they can still break. I mean, and the breakage should show relatively easily. If you look at the Etherpad here, I didn't follow but you know, I said in my own words what Lisa put in here about backups, steps 1 through 4. I skipped the snapshot part at the moment. There's an important issue. So we may have broken some things along the way. So one of them was a nice optimization that Fink put in when we do live backups. If you have the ability to do an attach of a snapshot itself, then you can use the snapshot as the source of the backup instead of having to make a temporary volume, using the temporary volume, which everybody can attach as so that's some technical debt falling out of this that ought to be fixed, I think. Other stuff that's in here that's listed is we did not go through and remove the backup driver methods that this logic out of the, the volume methods for doing backups are still in the code base. Okay, so there's some cleanup. Now, the interesting thing is some of those volume methods do a little more than what we put in the manager, in the backup manager. I don't know necessarily what they're doing. I don't know what, it was somewhat mysterious, but I think we need to go through them one by one, and it may be that we need a like a prepare backup and finish backup hook or something so that we could RPC back to the volume services if they need to do something special for their backends other than the attach and provision of the data that we know about. It's there were just a couple of them. One of them was Sheepdog, I think, which we broke anyway, and Duncan said it was okay, so we just went with it. The other one, I think, may be the BMDK stuff. They may be doing something on their back end that they need to do. So we may have broken that one. Pardon? Yeah, I don't know if they were running CI that in a way that showed that. I mean, that's the thing. We don't really run a lot of. Yeah. The point is, though, that there may be fallout, and even though I'm all for this architectural change and championed it, there may be fallout that we should be looking at. We also need to think. You know, we have this. Do we do actually a one-cycle deprecation of everything the way we planned, or could we conceivably stretch compatibility out over more than one cycle? Would that potentially make sense, given that we don't? I just worry about, you know, it's a big change, and I have the fact that we haven't had customers reporting bugs about it makes me nervous about saying, oh, well, 6 months is enough to get rid of the old way of doing it entirely. Because if you have nobody reporting any bugs on something, it tends to mean they aren't using it yet. You know,
Then you don't have regression.
pardon?
Then you don't have regression.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't mean that nobody uses, well, no, I mean, it may be a fair remark. I mean, we have customers that don't use Cinder backup and use, you know, snapshots and from glance, and they call it backup. But. So the performance on each individual backup was sucks so bad, you're saying?
Yeah, we didn't even try it until it wasn't even on our roadmap until the attached snapshot stuff. Like, there's no way we could let.
Till you could do the live.
Yeah. It's just it wasn't even possible.
Well, and that's one of the things we gave as a motivator and the use cases for the blueprint was that with live backups, we were suddenly going to start seeing people use this stuff, and we needed to get more throughput through the system. So I don't know. I mean, this doesn't necessarily have to be settled right here, but you know, we could talk about. I would like to see more testing. I would like to see, you know, and I'm willing to help work on that because I want to learn this testing infra. And I'd like to at least broach the question of do we move as aggressively on the transition as we originally envisioned? Or do we somehow look at keeping both modes alive for a couple releases or something like that?
Kind of a safety thing that we can fall back, but it sounds like no one would want to fall back from, based on at least a lot of the feedback here.
Well, if nobody's using it the old way, then we're not breaking them.
And if that really is the case, then I'd rather get it out of there.
I know there are operators using it now.
They are, okay.
There are operators using the old backups.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're seeing that.
So they still can, you still work. But there are.
So there's kind of two
I know
components. One is scalable, the other is the uncoupled from Cinder value. Right?
In the sense that you could decouple and not run multiple. It's still scalable, but you cannot scale it.
Right. I'm just saying, like, when we're looking at the next distribution we're going to put out,
Yeah,
we're saying, now you don't have to have.
I'm not worried about honestly, about the aspect of running on multiple nodes by itself, because I mean, maybe somebody else has more experience and correct me, but the backup and restore are so independent of one another. You know, each backup and restore job and so on. The fact that they're running on separate nodes rather than one node in itself doesn't bother me. It's more, that makes it hard to test maybe on it.
I'm just saying, like, our next release will maybe make changes to the fact that we don't have to have backup volume on the same node.
Yes.
We don't kind of care about the scalability of customers are asking about it. It's really easy, maybe, but that may be the thing you get more feedback from first, because it's
So
just changes the deployment.
Default will be the old behavior that default will be they are still on the same node, but then they have a choice to make it not on.
Give a choice to run
That'll
on
be
it.
more, that'll be safer.
Well, so there's the technical debt and testing aspect of it in terms of work. I think the follow-up, that's not exciting, but work that ought to be done on this. We should have active HA. And where's Gorka Heidi? Basically, well, okay, so that's, and you put that remark, I believe, in here, or someone did. Well, we have more HA now, right? In the sense that if one node is gone, no, we're talking about for the backup service itself.
Really matter because you just,
There's a sense in which it's a less of a critical need, right? Because if you have more than one service and one can take over, and it is already active, and it can take the jobs if the other one's down, that mitigates the need for it to some extent.
Yeah, sounds like you get it for free, doesn't it?
Well, there's
more than one.
all right. So there's a patch on here which ties back to Gorka's work on work distribution and cleanup and so on. And Right, that's why we were talking about the general subject now is follow-up to the work she had done that we would do in this release. So I think that is related work, and that we clean up, and the way we're cleaning up right now is not fully active. I think it integrates with, Rocky, you want to say something about how basically your work when it completes will finish off the backup active as well.
No, because I think it also depends on the direction we're taking with the backups. We are going to allow to have different backends for the backups, or we are only going to have one for all the backups.
So, this is the second issue, I think, and unrelated.
Yeah, but also if right now, if I'm not mistaken, if one node goes down, I don't know, I haven't followed quite closely that one, so all your backups have the same configuration for the backup backend, and they would all be allowed to access the data. So it would not be like the volumes.
Correct.
Okay.
Currently, yeah.
The only piece that's really missing is cleaning up in progress backup or restore when the node goes down.
Okay. That could go. That could. That's fine.
There is a copy the manager, they post that.
But you can't do it on startup because you don't know if it's able to do that work. It's not quite right yet. It's not quite good use.
But in the old backup way, in the couple one, you could actually have different backends or backups, depending on, for example, you could have a specific backend for fast things and with a set backend, and you could have another node without backup or with another backend for the backups, right? So they would not be actually showing the backup backend, right? So that's
What are you actually doing that? It was a theoretical config. I've never found anybody who said, yes, we were doing that. And I've asked a lot of people.
okay.
Lots of people said, yeah, in theory you can do that, but no one was actually doing it. I'm not too worried about taking away an option that no one was using.
No, I'm not talking about getting away the option. I'm talking about
You have like one manager, one manager and one backup device, and we don't have like multiple. We don't have like cluster that you're trying to do for the volume manager, right? So, and is there any plan to change that, or is that?
Wait, my question is,
Do we need it?
who wants to do it, wants to use this? Exactly why.
I don't know. That's I don't know if that's part of your. So your HA thing, active HA, does that include the backup manager as well? So you want the backup manager, multiple backup nodes, backup manager nodes, with one backup device? Is that something that you want to do?
Yeah.
That's another one.
Sorry, I'm missing that one. People keep saying multiple backends and they share at the same time. To me, then people problem, so I'm not understanding exactly. There's the whole multiple backend thing. We want to back up to different backend devices. I've been asking for a user story or a use case for that. Nobody's asked for it, and I've never got one yet. I've never found anyone who's actually doing it in practice before, even though it's theoretically possible.
So the idea is we don't want to extend the active capabilities beyond having the whole cloud using the same backup backend. Right?
That is active directory. That's what active directory means.
Yeah,
Multiple backend is independent of active directory. They're two different problems.
But if you have multi-backend, now you have a different active problem.
Yes.
That's more
Yes.
complicated.
If you have multiple
For
backend,
which-
you could extend the active.
So maybe we should, maybe we're discussing it in the wrong order. Except that, of course, he's doing work that, the point is that when we get the stuff sorted from the small, and that work continues, it would apply to backup probably as easily or more than to volume.
Yeah, you can follow the volume manager model. The thing is, it's even more even more complexity, even more fast, and no one's given a good reason why they want to do it.
I'm not saying we should. I'm not saying we should do it right away. I'm just talking about how architecturally it fits in. I think we could. Now, so maybe we should turn to the question we've visited a few times, which you already touched on. Is there any actual use case for running diverse backends for backup? And I'm starting to hear some. Okay, and again, I'm being relevant. My own attitude is fairly conservative about what we ought to work on, at least in terms of productionizing. But it doesn't hurt to start thinking about it or even doing some prototype code. Now, what I'm hearing, here's one that's fairly real, which is someone wants to run a Swift compatible front end for a Swift backup service, wants to continue the regular Swift with a different object store, wants to continue their regular traditional backup service at the same time. And they run basically some more test stuff or whatever to one and run the traditional Swift backup service to another. And they're considering migrating in the future. That's not made up. I've heard it. It's not done.
Never heard that.
Yeah, it's not in there yet. Another would be that they actually want to use SEP backup service for SEP sourced volumes, because there's some advantages when you're working on both. But they don't want to use the SEP backup service for non-SEP volumes right now, because it doesn't do incremental for now. So there's a concrete reason that somebody might well want to do that. Now, those have been described to me. I don't have a customer in hand who actually wants to do them tomorrow.
Doesn't matter. That's what I was asking.
But I think those are real
Those
use
are both
cases.
interesting.
And I think we could come up with some others. So that takes us to the question of, if we were to do that, even if it's not right in Newton, how would we do it? What would be the right way to do it? So I want to say, we would want active HA for that. We wouldn't want to regress on that front.
Yeah.
So that means by the time we start doing that, we should have the infrastructure that we're working on for the volume service in place and be able to leverage it and be able to use the same.
Yeah.
So I guess that's the way I want to play it.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing, what was the other thing? Oh, the other thing is that raises the question of, do you use a scheduler to do it? Because right now, as we said, we just got this going right now with a random shuffle among the available backup services. So presumably, you'd want some kind of scheduler that could decide. Pardon?
Why? What do we think?
Okay, you need some sort of selection mechanism to decide if you have diverse. If I have a set, So the question is, if I have diverse, I need some kind of selection mechanism. We call that a scheduler, kind of a placer in a non-known world, And so how would we do that? So one idea, I think, Gorka, you said this to me, but I may have misconstrued it in my own mind. The way I was thinking of it was that we already have extra specs and volume types.
Create a backup type.
So you could have a backup type okay, good. This is a good conversation. So let's say it first, though, and then let's hear the expletives.
How is that decision made now?
Pardon?
If you have multiple backends, how is that?
We don't have diverse multiple backends, and with the new service right now, it is just doing a random shuffle. Pardon?
No. Aside from the scalable split out backup service thing.
Okay.
How is that?
You
multiple
configure
backend
one type, is the default Swift, and there's only one of them. I'm Liberty. There's only one of them running. The default was Swift. You change it in your cinder.conf to SAP if you want
So
SAP,
there really is only
or
one,
NFS.
not multiple backends.
Correct.
Okay,
But
I was
right.
hearing people.
So what we have now is multiple instances of the same thing in Mitaka. You can run multiple services.
You just said we're not going to look at doing multiple backends now.
We said we're not going to implement it
So
now.
I don't think there's massive value in discussing it right now. But
Oh, there is, because I can hear you swear about what a stupid idea it is, and I want to hear why it is. I mean, I think it's worth thinking down the road a little bit. We don't have to settle it today, but I do think it's worth hearing, you know, what are people's ideas about how we could do that.
My thing is, we ought to be looking right now, what we're going to do is give matter.
Okay, let's hear yeah, so we said fixing things, and we listed a few things that we ought to fix. And you're saying there's a bunch more things that we ought to. Okay, and we had that down there. So you would prioritize that ahead of the. Okay, so we have 2 reviews down there. They're the same 2 reviews I put up when we first did this, when we talked about this back in Paris, I think it was, when I did the prototype code after that. And they don't work. So this is the work that has been done. We can shift subject to that, but I would like to briefly know what's so horrible about the idea of putting so you would create an association between a volume and its intended backup service by means of an extra spec and the volume type. You could use retype to change that, changing nothing else in the type, right? And do that quickly and easily. So that
won't let you do your reverse visual backup service from language.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking backup types, because then you can apply that backup type in any one.
The backup type is just one thing, it doesn't need key value pairs, doesn't need content, etc.
Yeah, I'm backing up to this.
You're backing up to this, and then I could change it. I could run it on that.
I'm going to run it on Swift this time. Next time I'm going to run it against something else.
I'm going to have to do a retype, but it's an optimal retype.
No, because you're creating a new backup.
Oh,
The API call itself.
just do it in the API.
Yeah.
Do it in the ARC. You just want it in the ARC. Probably fine. Just thinking about it. All right, so now we can go back to your. I mean, I agree with the prioritization. If we can get performance on, because you're saying part of the reason the service isn't used is not just that the aggregate throughput is horrible, but a single backup or a single restore can take way too long. So we could parallelize with processes on the same.
That sort of works. It's sort of yes in a lot of point of view, with port handling and child hatching. They'll be done.
So the previous attempt was to use threads, and that did not work out well.
So it doesn't work well in Python because you
Yeah,
still only call
global
read one
interpreter
time.
log
It doesn't matter.
So the first data point is that the backup is in general 110 GB.
Really?
Yeah, it's doing compression.
You're stuck you're stuck in gzip or whatever?
Stuck in gzip, and then you get stuck in SSL, which is going to try and compress and compress data. You're going to encrypt that.
Gotcha.
So threading out is not going to help at all.
That's
Threading out is not going to help at all.
So I need some work with doing sync with real defects to get real CPUs, and that gives you get 5x speed up with no real effort at all.
Well, there's thread pool workers that I thought are supposed to get around this.
I couldn't make them work.
Yeah.
Not sure why.
Because then we could initialize the thread pool with a X number of workers and then just throw it at the pool.
If somebody made that work, that would be perfect. I think I was thinking probably to the SSL library, where it's doing something that they can get single done with a thread pool. But that might be just an issue I was thinking with.
So one of our libraries isn't.
Is there a bug against this particular?
Yeah, that seems like something that
It's
would.
not really working. There's like a big say patch, you voted it didn't work, you put it up there as a data point for other people. But we can try to access this approach when I worked with a video on this, and we try to access approach.
So this is something someone could work on and do. I'm not going to work on it. It's who is.
I'll work with someone, but I couldn't make that work.
So if I end up actually getting this stuff in my production cloud, I'll take a look because actually as most people know, we actually do backups instead of snapshots. We basically did the exact same thing with the backup service. And yeah, I've rewritten it like 5 times with different thread pool and multi-process stuff. So I mean, I'll take a look.
So, but again, you had, in some of those iterations, you had success on the beyond.
So we had different problems. Like we chose different. We chose LZ4 or whatever instead of GZIP.
Yeah.
So you just catch up like to send backup.
Gotcha.
It's very small patch.
Sure.
It's a great thing to have. It would make life better.
It's like way faster, but yeah.
No, you can't do that. It's better zero.
Nice.
So, I mean, I thought about like reading film the passcode.
Just zeros.
And it would be big enough win. The performance would be good. It'd be worth it.
Gotcha. Yeah.
If LG4 will give you good enough performance, that'd be
Sure. Well, to be perfectly clear, to be perfectly honest, we are not happy with our solution either. It's like way slower than we want it to be. But maybe that, yeah. I mean, I haven't gone to the pain of trying to rewrite it in Go yet, so I don't actually know if it's like just a Python sucks thing or anything else. But it's a very hard problem. Like Duncan said, it's hard to make it actually look any faster.
So I've got a big list of field suggestions making it much faster, which is what work up you use there. But KVM now has 10 clock tracking. If we could use that, we know what to be written, so you never have to find out the zeros.
If we're using KVM,
If we're using KVM.
but we also need to support Zen and VMware.
Yeah, but this is your optimization would work.
Yeah, at least in that case, which would be majority, probably, based on the last numbers.
Attached to the volume and put it back up. That's fine, back do what you do there. You know, it's complementary to any other speed that we do. Even if we get parallelism in there, double straight, we install big backups with big change box tracks. The small volume, totally complementary, and will be, in many cases, I suspect, to give you, the only way we can get 100 or 1,000 times speed up. Which is still done by like %.
Who's actually using incrementals now? And that's obviously a speed up.
Well, it is a big speed up, but it's still all of the data of your volume over an effort. With change block tracking, you get rid of all that. Now, it does mean.
No, I'm not. I'm just thinking.
It does mean some Nova, because we've got to get Nova to give us a change block track and swap them out and snapshot time, a whole bunch of things. But it's something like I intend to push it on Explorer. And if anybody else thinks that's an interesting problem, I'd love to know.
Yeah, it's not that I'm understood. I'm just working on other stuff these days, and probably I feel more
So
karmic.
Duncan may even do that on like raw identity volumes, like any volume tracks blocks, right?
And anything you can track, with any raw volume starters, the NFS.
That's actually pretty cool.
I'd see that as a future
I found out
enhancement.
this is from a project to do change tracking and
Certainly.
all we need is an extension to the Nova volume stuff.
Sure.
You say, can you keep it to change box and back and attach, detach, snapshot?
That is pretty cool.
Is that the echo? Duncan?
Was it echo? Yeah, I think it was.
Okay, so kind of summing up there's speculative stuff, but backing off from that for a moment. People who actually want to work on the performance of single backups, there's room there. And Duncan has a wealth of experiences. Sounds like Tarzan does too. Corey, are you running parallel backups as well?
We don't run back. Yeah, we had used process pools and stuff like that and did the thing in parallel. But
I mean, are you also running out parallel across nodes, scale out on multiple nodes, or you just do parallel? No.
Our back end is small nodes, so yeah, every single node does its own backup.
Does its own backup on that.
But you've at least gotten the process pool executors working.
That stuff yeah, it works okay.
Yeah.
Some people didn't like the way I implemented it because everybody hates parallels and say their way is the only way. But
And then there's probably a lot of, a significant amount of cleanup. There's a bug that we need to fix on the snap attach.
Right now, only one driver has implemented that interface anyway.
I can,
Only one driver has implemented that.
yeah, only one driver's been impacted right now, so it's a shame that we regress on that front.
I thought we did too.
It is, it's both, yeah.
Well, really, we need to make, really, we need to hook that in through brick, I think, is the right answer
the
here.
change-
And then that,
change to is putting out the backup service. Sorry.
if you can attach a snapshot with brick, the way you can attach a volume with brick, then we won't have an issue.
As long as you get the target information
Yeah,
out
I
of
mean, so that's.
finish line connection, just like you do the brick
She
does not care.
implemented it, we're only.
No.
It's fine.
yeah, we're not understanding unless
Oh. Yeah. LVM
So
does
the
not
other
have
thing
a
is
solution.
we have, which is basically.
Is what? I'm having trouble hearing over here right now.
Hold on, guys.
The other thing missing from that is decent template coverage.
Yes, we did, and we're saying we really need, we're gonna talk about entry Tempest at some point.
Our next session is about
Okay.
testing.
But
yeah.
I can ask Eric this, is if we're doing entry Tempest tests, does that get us beyond some of the frustrations and interdependencies that, he was talking earlier about the catch-22s.
So one of the things that you said about this is they didn't want to make the job, the cinder test, but not everybody else's job even longer. So at the moment,
Oh, yeah, I saw
the
that.
template test on every node of that. And the suggestion from the company guys was to have another job that runs only on cinder patches and doing things like the data test. And backup certainly completely unaffected by saying no.
So I could see that being very useful, having a small subset that really validates the interaction between Cinder and Nova, things like that, but then having a more complete Cinder test suite that we just run.
You did the job.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we'd have to restructure the Tempest directory a little, probably. Or is it?
I think
Or
it
maybe-
makes sense to do so when you say which is which.
Or maybe splitting it out of putting it in our tree will do
And-
that.
and
Basically,
that's-
everything in our tree will be stuff that
Yeah.
we can't put in our tree.
Yeah.
What I didn't say, and the reason I started moving down there, it's all very well to say we should have more coverage, but if we're gonna make it happen or a significant amount of that happen in one release, then we need to figure out a way to have a more agile process in terms of getting stuff into Tempest. Eric said he got lazy, but that's not true.
Yeah.
And the testing your own project, the negative testing, particularly your own project, they've always seen your thing. That makes perfect sense.
I had a lot of pushback when I talked to them about putting stuff in tree, but
Eventually you'll.
yeah, I think I've seen that. It makes sense to me that it would be in our tree.
But breaking down into a couple of jobs in the case, just not the whole one massive long job problem, I think he's well worth doing. I don't think it's difficult at all.
Mhm.
Oh, Ben, you're running entry scenario, or you're ramping up on entry scenario tests in vanilla, right? No, I'm thinking about the issue of not being the process blocks, as it were. They're not blocks necessarily, but the catch-22s and stuff of trying to get stuff actually in the real Tempest tests. And
You don't have anything.
I know, so you run out, Cinder's talking about potentially running our own. Pardon?
It's a no-brainer.
What's, we'll talk about that.
we can do
Yeah,
that.
testing is
So
next.
we'll just log that we need more testing. That obviously Tempest, obviously backup's an area where we have very poor coverage right now. With this change we made in Mataka, we don't even know what the old stuff worked, so we don't know what we broke. So we really need to work on that.
Okay.
Did we want to go back to can we use the same model for copy volume to image?
Duncan put in a comment about that, I guess. Do you want to copy volume to image using the same kind of model to offload?
Yeah, so when after we did about the first time, we did it as a separate service, so we set exactly the scale horizontally independent of the volume. From day one, that was designed, it didn't end up that way, we could take it to the community, technical depth and that, actually. But at the same time, we suggested a cinder IO worker.
Oh, yeah, we talked about that in Fort Collins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think we've thought of this as
Maybe
not
an
necessarily
extension
a
of it.
prototype for that, but just breaking some ground on being able to do remote attaches.
But my mind focuses the cheap and being able to scale that independent of the backup is actually a good thing. I'd rather have special purpose processes narrow scale, make them far easier to debug, far easier to read with, and about far easier to scale.
They're easier to debug and read. They also, I think, the scaling dimensions for data motion, data copy type services are different than the scaling dimensions for handling a lot of requests and interacting with the database.
So can't we kind of fake the data service by putting those commands to the scheduler and tying it directly to the HA stuff that we're doing? Because you kind of get that for free to a certain extent. If you scale out the same volume backend to multiple nodes and put the request to the scheduler scheduler can keep track of which node is actually doing copy volume to image and not send that same request to that backend. And you don't need a data service.
Many methods in the volume services. You start running out of web stopping on your backend. Very far. If I just want to force in the volume services, my free like a rush. Whereas probably if I'm doing a lot of Google volumes, having 40 IO work is not very good at all. I want 10 processes to do that on each volume node for a lot of cases.
Right.
Because again, it's process bound stuff on like that moment.
Right.
So having that as a service is just given work. And some scheduling, because there's no locality and stuff may or may not be important. But just start by writing it, and then it's then you turn on and off.
The trick is that, so the problem kind of with this is that some volume backends are tied to certain transport protocols, fiber channel, for example.
Yep.
And the only way this ever works is if every single cinder volume node is actually built exactly the same way. There's a way to kind of determine what capabilities Box has that I could add that to Brick to find out, hey, do you support fiber channel at all?
You tell your IO workers to have a pool of IO workers per single volume. And if you want to host that can do multiple, just spin up lots of IO workers in the process, they're free.
Here's my fiber channel IO workers. Here's my
Yeah.
SCSI IO workers.
It's not that elegant, but it's not complicated.
But how do you know which box supports it and which doesn't? Don't.
That's
Right.
You've always got to know that.
We don't know that right now at all.
You've got to.
But well, the thing is that I was suggesting that we could discover it because Brick knows how to find that information out.
Yeah.
But we don't have a mechanism to feed that up like a capabilities for a host thing into the scheduler.
Well, I think we would have to have an operator, a configuration option anyway, because we could discover that there's fiber channel adapters in this given node. But that doesn't necessarily mean that there's fiber channel connectivity between this node and the array in question.
Independent channel sound connected to nodes, but no connection between those. No negative sound A, no big sound B. That's not an uncommon deploy them in deeply complementary.
Why would you have that service pointing to your back end that is on the other fabric then? That doesn't make sense. So I don't know.
If people will be using old HPC storage, some of them are even just sticking LVM on top of a big old HPC stamp. They've got all they did. And they're good enough for basic cloud work. You know, they were top of the line 10 years ago when they walked with HPC. But they've got a petabyte of them, so they don't want to run away for cloud work. I know two people doing that right. Two people doing that right now. OpenStack Cloud. So you can't just go to discovery.
Right.
I start by chucking the config file and having you deploy it to get cloud.
Although the lookup service will tell you if the two endpoints are connected.
Well, okay, so
That's what we have in the lookup service today, and that's what we use to, you know, correctly wire up the endpoint and export it to the node compute host. The lookup service does tell you that. So if you do a lookup on those two endpoints and you get nothing back, then obviously you can't do an attachment there.
I mean, you still want to be very in the config file, things like back network. You know, you know what node you've got back network connection, which you've got, you know, top of rack, core connectivity and stuff. So you might want to put your IO workers focus on a small number of nodes.
Right. Yeah.
The network modular is the thing. I think possibly we're just prototyping that service, but the config option, people will be staying as we are.
Yeah. I could add some discovery stuff into Brick and as an API, and if we decide to use it or not, that's fine too.
Yeah.
That can't hurt.
All right. We kind of strayed a little bit, but yeah. Well, thanks.
Thanks, Tom.
So our next one is at 3:30. Good thing we took that little extra time, I guess. So we've got about 15 minutes or so. Let's take a little break.
Okay.